What is going on? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X Lair to provide you my deep and very insightful thoughts into X-Men 97, Episode 8. 9-10, yes, Episode 8. The first part of Tolerance is Extinction. First of three, we are in for a ride. This was a very big episode, but it was still the first part of whatever's going to happen next. I have theories about what's going to happen next. I don't necessarily love what's going to happen next, but I am very excited to think about it, let it play out, and see how it goes, you know? Anyway, this was quite the episode. Lots of stuff happened, lots of revelations, lots of really incredibly wonderful moments. Just on a character level, on an action level, on I'm an X fan and I've been waiting my whole life to see shit like this level. Like, it's pretty fantastic. Okay, so we know exactly what Bastion's about now. We know exactly what Sinister's motivations are. And beyond that, like, the whole Operation Zero Tolerance, which was OZT. Last week I didn't realize that OZT was Operation Zero Tolerance. Operation Zero Tolerance is a 90s X-Men crossover involving Bastion. But I feel that whole thing is a red herring for what is actually going to happen in these last three episodes, which is like going to be like Magneto unhinged, and we're going to get Fatal Attractions, and we're going to get Wolverine getting his adamantium sucked out of his skeleton like I predicted last week, and we're going to have Xavier ultimately having no choice but to turn off Magneto's mind. And that will lead to the merging of his psyche with Magneto's, which will lead to Onslaught, which is like another big crossover from the 90s that ultimately was just like the perfect marriage of the power sets of Magneto and Xavier, with both of their frustrations sort of defining the character, and it being just a universe-wide, like, just catastrophe, ultimately. Universe-wide meaning Marvel universe-wide. And the fact that we are getting so many connections to the greater Marvel universe really tells me that the show is, like I mentioned last week, like, it wants to very clearly establish that it's part of this greater Marvel universe, but at the same time, I think it's laying the groundwork for stories that will involve a lot of the characters from the Marvel universe, because a lot of what happens in like the major crossovers that involve the X-Men is all of the characters in the Marvel universe are affected by it, and so that's what I think is going to happen. I think that's what their plans are. Like, this is their way of finally cementing X-Men's place back into Marvel after everything that Disney had done, trying to undermine the brand, basically erase it from Marvel branding for like a decade. I teach little kids math through the internet, and none of them know who the X-Men are, and I'm not going to tell them who the X-Men are because I know they're about to find out. Like, the older kids are about to start telling them about it, and they're going to start realizing it. But there's like a whole generation there, like, I don't know who these people are. And like, I remember there was like 2 Christmases ago, I got like a nephew of mine, a Wolverine action figure, and he was like, "Wolverine, this is old. Nobody cares about Wolverine." I was very disappointed in him, and I've written him out of my will, of course, but nonetheless. Anyway, so like, big things are going to happen. Big things are likely to happen in these next few episodes. Let's talk about this episode, though. Okay, so we didn't get much in the way of new stuff in the introduction, but in the introduction we got Professor Xavier, which means Xavier's back in action. Now, we thought that Xavier and Storm were going to be in this episode. Not yet. They don't want to, like, they wanted to take us down the Operation Zero Tolerance path of, like, you know, all these Prime Sentinels are everywhere and they're attacking, all these horrible things are happening. And then, clearly, the bigger threat, what I'm predicting, is Magneto. And so that is going to require all the X-Men to be united. And so that is, I think, what is being built up to here. And so, yeah, so it sort of made sense. Like, let's let the X-Men as they are take care of, like, the Operation Zero Tolerance threat. Even though Bastion is still out there, like, obviously they've been neutralized by my boy Magneto, which I'll talk about towards the end, of course. And so now that, like, regardless of what cards, like, Bastion still has to play, because obviously he's very powerful. He can teleport, he can manipulate metal, he can talk to machines. Like, that's only the tip of the iceberg with respect to, like, what we know about what he can do. So we don't know what's going to happen with him yet, right? But anyway, so let's talk about this episode, okay? Like, we start out in a very sort of simple situation where, it's about, like, Jean and Scott, like, kind of dealing with the fact that Cable's there, and, the aftermath of the last episode, like, it's clear that Cable does not want to have conversations. Cable wants things to be as they were, like, prior to this show, which was, like, very, like, I'm here to take care of business. The X-Men help. There's no family drama, right? But now it's clear who Madeline is, whatever, whose mom is, whose dad is. It's all out on the table finally. So now it has to be dealt with, but it's not being dealt with, which I am very excited about, because it's going to be dealt with later, right? Like, it's like something that's going to play out, and it needs that time. It needs that time to play out. So, great moments, and then we get, like, the explanation from Cable, like, who is Bastion? Apparently Bastion, he, okay, first of all, there's a very important thing that happens here, which is, like, a very clear establishment that Genosha is not something that's going to be wiped away. So everybody that died on Genosha, and you can't undo it. It's one of these. So Beast mentions Kamar-Taj, right? Like, Doctor Strange's, mystical home base, right? So the idea of, like, these moments that cannot be changed. That was something that I believe we saw in the Avengers movie. Once again, like, multiversal rules are being clearly sort of blanketed to be part of the entire Marvel universe, regardless of what universe we're talking about, where we are. Like, the rules are the rules, which I like quite a bit. So Genosha is one of these moments that cannot be undone. Cable has tried to undo it several times. He could not do it. He was always pulled back. And he explains that Bastion took advantage of the Genosha massacre to then ultimately take power. And, Morph mentions, another dystopia where Wolverine's the only one that survives, but that wasn't the case. Like, Cable describes not a dystopia, but a utopia. And in that utopia, like, mutants are basically being used as labor, like they were in Genosha initially, but somehow, like, they've allowed, like a perfect world to emerge or something. And so, we see scenes like this where, we get some nice Easter eggs. Like, this is Rachel Summers. That's basically Scott and Jean's other kid. We also saw Lorna Dane Polaris, Magneto's other daughter, old, like, being used again. Like, they're, like, everything's working out in this world, except for the fact that it appears mutants are, like, slaves. So, not a great situation, even though for humans it is a great situation. And so, anyway, so we see all this. Cable doesn't have a clear idea of where Bastion came from. He thinks it was just a body that Master Mold downloaded himself into. So there isn't a clear sort of origin yet, but we definitely get it later, obviously. So we go from here, and we get this real. By the way, I don't think Cable has ever looked better than in that shot on the TV show, which is fantastic. But, like, in this discussion, like, they are interrupted by the fact that it is being broadcast that Xavier is alive, and that the whole thing was a lie, that he died, and that obviously is a spin that Bastion wanted to get out there in order to create the idea that this whole like positive vibe towards mutants was BS. I love the layers, like, because it's not just about techie robots coming out. It's like it's about manipulating every aspect of public perception to be able to create the climate that would allow for something like Genosha to happen, and for there not to be like serious repercussions from it. It's a very sort of profound exploration of like this version of the story. It just reflects like an intelligence and a maturity in the interest of telling these stories, which is everything I've ever wanted from life. Okay, so anyway, so we get this, and then we get and then we go to Jubilee and Sunspot. This is William Stryker, by the way, for those that know. William Stryker is just another anti-mutant hater. Religious zealot in the comics, not in the movies, but we'll see what happens, because obviously you don't just show William Stryker. Like, something's going to happen eventually with William Stryker. Anyway, so we've got Jubilee and Sunspot. They're dealing with the mom. Sunspot's mom, it's clear that everybody at this point, as they're processing the lie that Professor X died, there's everyone's kind of like the sentiment is changing, but nonetheless the mom is throwing a gala fundraiser for Genosha, but she said like the X-Men didn't try to help, and like anyway, you kind of seeing the effects of what's happening kind of trickle out here, and then this upsets obviously Berto and Jubilee, and they go shopping at the mall. Surprise, but actually really cool, because at the mall Jubilee gets her new look, which is like more reflective of like a later era. I love that they're sort of like, it's important, like the looks are important, and they're like evolving them as the show goes on, which is super important because like these characters have been around for a long time. I mean, this show is an echo of a past, and that past is not what's going on currently in these stories. So I like that it is, being reverent towards the history that has happened since the 90s, and it's evolving the story and the characters to suit that, and it's magnificent. Anyway, all right, so then we go to this lovely interaction with with Jean and Nightcrawler. This is basically the first time they're getting to know each other, which is really cool. Jean Grey and freaking Nightcrawler, man. It's just lovely to see this happening. And of course, he's like the moral compass. He's giving like this great wisdom, like to sort of help guide everybody's like turmoil. Jean mentions that, like she doesn't feel connected to Cable, but she has the memories of being his mom. And then, Kurt is very clear about like blood is blood, but family is something you can choose to make for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like, directly blood. Family is something that transcends that. That's a really important idea in the LGBTQ plus community. It's a really important idea in any kind of marginalized communities, where the community becomes the family when, the families have sort of turned their backs on people. So it's just, I just love it so much. It's so profound. Like, there's such a profound, like, layer to this whole thing. And it's just not just like the, silly cartoon bullshit, which is awesome in its own right, of course. But I don't know. I'm just in love with this whole thing. I just can't believe it. As it continues, I'm just like, this is still good. This is still good. It's still what I want it to be. It's great. Thank you, Bodemaya. Anyway, all right. So lovely moment. And then, we get them, like the family is going to Pittsburgh, where like, they have a lead on where Bastion might be. So Cable has an idea of where Bastion is, and that's where they're going. At the same time, it's revealed that Val Cooper is alive, and she's been working with Bastion and like other people. We see Doctor Doom, we see Baron Zemo, and somebody else that it's not clear who that is. Maybe somebody to do with the Hand, the assassin squad that often fights Wolverine. But I don't know. Like, anyway, so Val Cooper is alive. She's wearing like an arm, a sling, because she broke her arm, I guess. But she survived. We also see that Magneto is being held captive here. Sinister is there. Sinister reveals his very clear, like, intention, which is like, I just want a bunch of mutants and pens to experiment on. I'm using Bastion for that purpose. I'm glad it's such a perfect motivation for him, because that's who he is. It makes perfect sense. Like, he's willing to sacrifice a lot in order to, establish what he wants, in order to then create the future that he feels would be best for everybody, and himself, of course. He's just a maniacal fucking geneticist, man. That's what he is, and I love that it's consistent. They're holding Magneto, and he's like in this black Speedo. I'm like, oh, hey there, Daddy. Hey there, Daddy. You wanna be rescued? Maybe we can do each other favors. Sort of not what I was thinking, because that's dirty. But honestly, I'm a gay guy. Magneto and a Speedo, give it to me all day and night, baby. Emphasis on night. All right, so we've got Magneto, and he's being held captive, and Val Cooper is like, she's not happy with the situation. She didn't know what was going to happen with Bastion and Genosha. She didn't know that was going to happen. She was part of some cabal, though, to further sort of advance, like, the technology of Sentinels, which I guess Bastion made that promise to them, that he would advance Sentinel technology in order to prevent mutants from sort of ascending to a higher place in society as a whole. So it's like a very precarious situation when you have all these interests sort of vying for stability in, like, the world's sort of socio-political sort of realm. But they wind up getting in bed with the wrong people ultimately, and that's what happened here with Bastion, clearly. So we're finding out a lot of stuff, and then Trish Tilby shows up, right, at the mansion. I'm thinking, okay, so we're getting a character moment here with Trish Tilby, and like maybe like it's gonna further advance the relationship between Beast and her, and like they can actually wind up being together at some point. Like, that's sort of where the show is going for them, for Beast. Not the case, though. I'll mention that in a second. All right, so that happens. Then, Bastion and Cable and his parents wind up at his childhood home, and at Bastion's childhood home, and that's where it's revealed that Nimrod, like some Nimrod nanotech, was put into this janitor who became Bastion's dad. The mom, it turns out, this is what Bo DeMaio established online, something I did not realize, is the waitress that we saw in One Man's Worth, the two-parter from like season 4 of the original show. So she was like blonde-haired, glasses, like she was the waitress that was serving Wolverine, Storm, Bishop, and Xavier. So it turns out she's Bastion's mom. The janitor like somehow impregnated her with some I guess nanotech that sort of mixed in with like I'm guessing sperm, and then it became this like this organic being that was also like Nimrod. So it's a very interesting way to sort of establish the nature of Bastion without doing the whole Siege Perilous thing, which was like a mystical thing in the comics. I really like this origin story for Bastion. I think it's very clear cut. It's clear. It's not too weird. It's something that we've seen. We saw it in Blade Runner. What was it? Blade Runner 2029 or something, where like where you know, there was an android impregnated by a human. So anyway, so these ideas are ideas that are evolving in sci-fi in general. I like that it was incorporated here, and it's a great origin for Bastion. So everybody finds out, like, you know, what's going on, and this is when the turn happens, right? This is when, like, it's revealed that the Prime Sentinels are all over this town, are like stalking Sunspot and Jubilee. Trish Tilby is one of them. That really surprised me. I was like, okay, you got me, and I love it. Like, Trish Tilby as a Prime Sentinel, yes, bitch. And then all hell breaks loose, right? Action, action, action. Beautiful fights, beautiful power, like demonstrations. Just so much good stuff happening. And of course, at the same time, we're also getting the origin of like the Prime Sentinels, and like, you know, how like the people don't know that they are being turned into these things, but they have volunteered to be some sort of hand in, you know, like trying to stop mutants' ascendancy. And, you know, he mentions like dial-up internet and people have found each other. So the internet has played a role. So I love that it's like they're not just like being locked in by like the 90s sort of world. They're kind of extending like what we know to have evolved via social media today into like the past, because like the seeds of that were always there. And so anyway, so this is where like ultimately like Val Cooper has her sort of turn. We see Doom, we see Dr. Doom, we see Baron Zemo, and like Dr. Doom says, like, regardless of the fact that we're working together, like, I am not complicit with what you have done, your war crimes. Like, obviously none of them knew about Genosha. So I mean, Doom is always like concerned about power, you know, geopolitics, and he wants to maintain his power. And so I understand why he would fall in line with this cabal, but I'm glad that it became clear that he is not an enemy of mutants, because he's not an enemy of mutants. Like, he's willing to make them his allies, whatever. All he wants is power. Like, he doesn't care how he gets it. He doesn't hate particular groups. So really cool that we got the connection to the greater Marvel Universe villains without it being like, without it undermining like the villainy of Bastion, which I think is absolutely pure and very hateable in the show. Anyway, so from here, you know, after it's explained, you know how these, so everybody starts turning into Prime Sentinels. They start attacking everybody, and you know, we have some really great moments in the mansion where, you know, the Prime Sentinels are about to attack Rogue, and then Wolverine and Nightcrawler, man, fighting side by side. It's so good. It's so good. Because Nightcrawler is so awesome as just a force to be reckoned with. And we saw it here, and like we even saw this amazing sequence where Nightcrawler is like bamfing away all of the different Prime Sentinels so they don't screw with Rogue. And then at one point, like, Wolverine gets his claws in one of them. He bamps the Prime Sentinel away, Nightcrawler, bringing Logan with him, and Logan experiences the teleportation, and we see it like play out. Like, this is something we've never seen before. Like, what exactly is the experience of that? Like, that first person experience. I thought that was so fucking awesome and magical and just wonderful. Anyway, so we get like really great moments there. Lots of fighting. Oh yeah, we get another fucking awesome moment of like Wolverine, like he's getting taken up into the sky by the Trish Tilby Prime Sentinel, and then he is like fighting he's getting the moment I think everybody's been waiting for Wolverine, where he is tearing apart the Prime Sentinels as he's falling from the sky. He does not give a fuck about the fact that he's falling without a parachute. Like, he is tearing up these mofos. He is wrecking shop. He is Wolverine. And they're like, why do you even resist? He's like, I got 6 reasons, lady. Oh, and he called her the Tin Lady, which is like a callback to the Tin Man of Oz moment that he, where he calls one of the Sentinels the Tin Man. of Oz or whatever in the very first episode of the season of the show, the original show. So just wonderful. Everything's so great. Hey, all right. So fantastic fights. We get we get this great sort of swarm on the Blackbird, where Cyclops, Jean, and Cable are like falling apart, fighting these guys. They get into a Porsche that apparently Cyclops has in the Blackbird. The Blackbird's taken down. They escape. They bust out, and then eventually, they have this really great moment where they bust out of the car. Jean telekinetically, protects them as the car explodes behind them, and it's like the 3-shot of the family, the Summers, and it's wonderful. There's also a really great moment where Cyclops is blasting through the cave. Fantastic. And then of course we get another great moment with Jubilee and Sunspot. They're being attacked by the Prime Sentinels, and then Jubilee goes on the roof of the mall. She jumps off for some reason. I mean, she really didn't have much of a choice. And then that's when we see Sunspot in all his glory, flying, looking fantastic. It's just, Sunspot is one of my favorites, period. He's one of my favorite New Mutants. I love the look of his power. I love the representation of it. And here, spot on, fantastic. I can't wait for more of it. And then, so eventually, Bastion, it appears Bastion has won. The house is swarmed by these Prime Sentinels. The mansion is destroyed, on fire, and surrounded by these Prime Sentinels. And then Sinister communicates with him, tells him Val Cooper has let Magneto out. I thought Magneto was just going to be off the board for a long time, because I did think that Operation Zero Tolerance was going to be the thing for the 3 episodes, but it doesn't look like it's going to be. I think, once again, I feel like it's a red herring. I feel because we've seen Magneto put on his original red and purple costume in a trailer for the final episode. So it's all about Magneto now moving forward. I mean, after what they've done to him, after what they did to Genosha, tolerance is extinction. That's going to be Magneto's fucking philosophy. And I'm sure Xavier's going to try to stop him, but it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. Anyway, so Val Cooper has released Magneto. Bastion teleports there, and then he entraps her in metal. So that's where we get that demonstration of his power set with respect to metal and his manipulation of it. And then we get this wonderful fucking speech from Val Cooper of, she's first of all, she calls him a monster. She acknowledges that what he did was awful. And then she talks about her experience in Genosha as the Tri-Sentinel, the Wild Sentinel, was destroying everybody and killing and just doing what they did. And she talks about the fact that she wasn't surprised, and neither was anybody else. And then it ultimately comes down to her very clear declaration that Magneto was right. And Bo DeMaio, the showrunner, he tweeted last night, and he was like, "This is the thesis for the season." She just basically stated the thesis for the season. I was like, boy, that's the juiciest thesis I've ever come across, I'll tell you. So, and then that's when we get fucking Magneto's awesome demonstration of his power. He goes to the North Pole. He basically manipulates the entire magnetic spectrum of the Earth. All the magnetic fields that surround us, that are created by the spinning iron core, that ultimately block out, all of the radiation from space. And he causes an electromagnetic pulse that shuts off all electricity on Earth. And we see Spider-Man. We see the Silver Samurai. We see this happening all over the Earth. all the Sentinels are depowered. So he has stopped the Sentinels. And then we see the aftermath in the house. You know, the Sentinels have been taken down. They did not recuperate. And, you know, Morph and Wolverine are like cleaning up at the house. And then, you know, Wolverine's like, I can't believe Magneto finally did it. Morph is like, what? Save us? He's like, no, declare war. So like, this is part 1 of 3. At the end of this episode, it's clear that Magneto has declared war. So now it's all about Magneto, baby. God, man, I don't want Magneto to like just become this crazed villain, because I have so much. I love Magneto, but at the same time, I want to see this play out. So whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. It's gonna be fantastic. So Wolverine's like, you know, at times like it's like we need Charles, and like of course that's the moment that Charles crashes into the house. He crashes down, and then he takes off his helmet, and he's like, to me, my X-Men, and we see, you know, Storm, we see Cyclops, we see Jean, and you know, the table is even more set now. Xavier's back. Bastion is not defeated, but the Prime Sentinels are. Magneto is unleashed, and he is pissed. Xavier's back on the board. I'm just... What's going to happen next? Whatever it is going to be beyond awesome, and we're going to love every second of it. Believe me, I am. Anyway, so happy with everything going on in this show. So happy with that the show exists and that it continues on the way it does. It's clear Gambit's not being resurrected. In the comics, he eventually died and then was resurrected as Death by Apocalypse. So that's something that we may see. I have a feeling we will. I feel like Apocalypse is somebody we will maybe not see at all, or maybe we will see towards the end of this. I don't know. So many things could happen. Either way, I'm going to be super excited about it. Anyway, thank you for checking out my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click on that like button. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought. If you are not subscribed, subscribe to my channel and then click the bell so you know when I drop my next video, because you know there's going to be more videos, because I love this shit and I'll talk more about it. If you don't know X-Men, if you're new to the X-Men, come into my life, come into my world. I will explain it all to you. You will want more and more knowledge from me. Anyway, everybody, I hope you're doing the best you can in this wacky, wild world. But as always, I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you better put an X in the box, because ain't nobody checking this, bitch. Ain't nobody checking this, bitch. Bye-bye.